war. This is a spiritual war.
Mom's
This
never
is
been
a
interrupted.
God
This
war.
is cool.
And this is very important because An0maly told me about this book, New Lies for Old, written by
Can you hold it up?
An0maly.
Or Jack.
You hold it up.
Yeah.
An0maly Golitsyn.
Yeah, and he said that when the communists come in and take over, what they tell people is pretty much trust the plan.
Right.
Trust the plan.
And they say that there's generals that are going to make everything right. You don't need to worry or do nothing. And that really woke me up.
Me too.
Because I was like, oh my God, I've been trust the plan for too long.
Trust the plan. Everything's going to be taken care of. The white hats are coming. Panic in D.C. White to black. Right?
Yeah.
Trust the
And we're
plan.
So
doing
now
shit.
I'm like, oh my God, I just got woke.
And what you realize,
there's nobody coming. General Flynn says that. There's nobody coming.
That's right.
Well, we're coming.
Just us.
And hell's coming with us.
And that's called a Pied Piper operation.
Yeah.
So that's a Pied Piper operation. So they suck you in and they string you along and they say, don't worry.
They definitely went after Christians.
Of course.
With that.
That's why they use the Christian.
Great article came out recently, said QAnon bears striking resemblance to Bolshevik Psy-Op from the 1920s known as Operation Trust. Operation Trust was a Bolshevik counterintelligence operation run from 1921 to 1926 aimed at neutralizing opposition by creating the false impression that a powerful group of military leaders had organized to stop the communist takeover. Doesn't that sound familiar? In this book, it talked about how they used generals that people trusted and how they dupe people. Let's look. They convinced the leaders that the regime had undergone a radical change. Communism had completely failed. Ideology was dead. The present leaders had nothing in common with the fanatical revolutionaries of the past. These agents confided in their contacts that the anti-Soviet monarchist movement that they represented had penetrated into the higher levels of the army, the security service, and even the government, and in time would take power and restore the monarchy. Sounds exactly like one of the biggest fake theories in the right-wing movement right now. You could also read more about it. One of the biggest breakout stars over the last few months in the conspiracy theory realm is Simon Parks, who's been getting millions of views convincing people that there's a secret sting operation to save them and that FEMA camps and militarized streets are actually really good. Take a look.
And to what Americans called Gitmo. And we don't call it that in the United Kingdom, we call it Guantanamo Bay. But that's because we're British.
Yeah.
But the point here is that those FEMA camps that are there at the moment are for the bad guys. They're not for the good guys. So you shouldn't have any concerns. You know, if you've seen regular armed United States soldiers on the streets, you shouldn't have any concern. But 193,000 arrest warrants ready to roll. You're going to need those FEMA camps to put these people in. And as somebody said to me, there's a lot of fat cats in Washington, D.C. who are in for quite a rude awakening because it's not going to be the Hilton Hotel for them.
Exactly.
Of course, he's most likely lying. The FEMA camps are not to arrest your enemies. Why would they even have to put politicians in a FEMA camp? They have high-level facilities for that, if they were to do that. But the FEMA camps are actually the opposite of what he's saying, and they're being used for mass vaccination sites under a Joe Biden regime. People like William Cooper and Behold a Pale Horse used to try to warn people what happens under a national emergency and a FEMA takeover of the country. And for decades, conspiracy theorists, libertarians, and conservatives knew that an over-militarized government, FEMA camps, emergency declarations, lockdowns, and quarantines are not a great thing. That's not the good guys. That's government being too big, obviously. But Simon Parks, he says the exact opposite. And everybody trusts it because it sounds so good. There's a book that was written by a commie Bolshevik defector. His name is Golitsyn. He wrote a book called New Lies for the Old in like the 20s. And he talked about communism.
Yeah.
And like kind of blew the whistle on it, or I don't know, just wrote about his experiences.
It's an upside down Ponzi scheme.
Yep.
And in that book, he talked about a controlled opposition scheme. It was called Operation Trust. And in Bolshevikism, they told conservatives and patriots that there were generals doing stuff. So it's literally in the book. I own it. And they said, like, when you see communism invading your town, don't trip out about it because the generals will fix it. So like it kind of just dociled the people that would have normally opposed it. And it was called Operation Trust. And it seems very similar to QAnon. So that's where I'm not saying it necessarily is.
I'm not getting that. Tell me more.
It was the Bolshevik regime used a controlled opposition, like a counterintelligence scheme, to tell the conservatives, the patriots, the people that weren't commies, be like, don't believe your own eyes, because there's generals behind the scenes fixing it. So
That
like
is very similar.
when communism is entering, don't do anything about it. You don't have to like oppose it, because it's being fixed, but you just can't see it.
So you're insinuating that the Q movement is
I just think it sounds
A
similar,
psy-op
but
is a psyop.
I think it sounds similar, and just with Trump in general, I think that the one of the best things about him, besides his foreign policy, the fact that he's a man and he doesn't like fall asleep, is the fact that he actually has proven that he does listen, and like you said, like a populist. But I feel like now so many people just agree with everything he says that he doesn't feel the need to even do anything.